So the CEO of Embark Studios has said that Arc Raiders is not about shooting other players.
Really?
Hello, my gaming brothers and sisters, and welcome back to the channel. As always, I am Jonathan, your host here at QuickBird Gaming, and I appreciate you tuning in for another episode of QuickBird News, where we cover all the gaming news it's fit to cover from the past week. This episode is going to focus on the news from 4 to 10 January, and we have some things to talk about. We've got talk about some upcoming games, a game that just released, and the developers are kind of standing defiant, in my opinion, in the face of reality, and a strange story out of esports that is left me scratching my head, and it might make you too. As always, each story is timestamped in the description box down below, so feel free to jump down there and find a story that interests you. Okay, now that we have the preliminaries out of the way, before we get to all those other stories, we have to talk about the lead story from my intro and from the thumbnail, and that is about Arc Raiders and what is going on over there at Embark Studios. Okay, we're going to start off with this trio of articles from Insider Gaming that were published on successive days talking about the state of Arc Raiders. And we'll start with this one from Wednesday, the 7th of January. And it says, Arc Raiders CEO, the game isn't about shooting other people. The CEO of Embark Studios has revealed they don't wish to promote PvP systems as they don't want to foster that type of gameplay. Arc Raiders is undoubtedly one of the standout titles of 2025, having recently hit a milestone of 12 million units sold, which is pretty remarkable because the game did not come out, I want to say September, October. It was fairly late in the year, and it already sold 12 million units. During a new interview with GameBeat's Dean Takahashi via IGN, Embark Studios CEO Patrick Soderlund revealed they aren't looking to promote PvP systems. They said that they're happy where the team is. They don't know where the team is right now on adding Nemesis systems and are happy the game doesn't have a leaderboard. It's not competitive. They don't necessarily want to foster that type of gameplay, as the game isn't about shooting other people. Of course, the game allows you to be aggressive and fight other players, but the ethos of the game has never been to go in and shoot people. The PvP element was added to craft tension. And I think that's rather interesting when you place it up against the success the game has had. Sure, there's some danger. Sure, there's an element of conflict, but it's not omnipresent. And that, I think a lot of people, I think the people that really enjoy the hardcore PvP, the people who play Calls of Duty and Rust and things like that, where it's constant nonstop attacking one another, I think most of them have found their niche and are probably not going to be moved out of it. I think a lot of people playing Arc Raiders are people who are bored of that, or there may a lot of casuals who just don't necessarily want to be killed every time they log into the game. And it's just a gut feeling. You can tell me down in the comments if you think I'm wrong about that. Now, having said that, I'm going to flip to the second article, which was from Thursday, the 8th of January. Arc Raiders is, quote, worse than Call of Duty for cheaters, streamers say. Okay. They say they've got an issue that's bubbling in the shadows, and it concerns cheaters finding their place in the game and ruining the fun for legitimate players. Okay, a recent spate of complaints regarding Arc Raiders' apparent cheater problem was kicked off in earnest by Nadeshot, a popular streamer, and he posted something of an essay, and part of it reads, the egregious amount of cheating genuinely might be worse than peak Call of Duty. Now, if that's true, that's significant and not a good situation. And he says, I'm not trying to bring negativity to the game and so on and so forth. Then he says, I'm at war and I'm legitimate and I'm absolutely getting pummeled for 8 hours straight every day, hours and hours of looting, crafting, and investment time and resources, wiped out raid after raid over and over again. My off the cuff answer is, dude, you're a streamer. This is your job. This is what's supposed to happen. Your job doesn't always go great every day. But that's flippant, and it doesn't address the fact that there may be significant problems. Now, I've stated before, I don't play these types of games. I don't play extraction shooters or multiplayer shooter games. So I really don't know how significant the cheating problem is, but this is someone who's bringing attention to it. Next, you have days later, Shroud, another popular streamer, surfaced in the clip and declared that, quote, 50% of each lobby is cheating and asked what's the point in playing, unquote. Okay. Then later in the article, it says, many have commented on social media claiming that even after hundreds of hours of game, they're yet to see a single cheater or suspicious player. So based on just kind of the empirical evidence, it doesn't seem like it is a crippling problem yet. However, it seems like Embark Studios is looking to nip it in the bud before it does become one, which is, kind of a green flag in their favor. I'll go to the third article, which was from Friday, the 9th of January. Arc Raiders devs will implement significant changes to crack down on cheaters. And they said that they revealed that they're implementing significant changes in new detection systems to tackle the ongoing cheating in the game. Okay, and then it talks about the articles we just talked about. As spotted by Games Radar, Arc Raider devs have addressed the cheating issues through a statement on their Discord server. They're taking it very seriously. They will be implementing significant changes to Arc Raiders rule sets, deploy new detection mechanisms to identify and remove cheaters, include updating their anti-cheat system to improve detection, enforcement of bans, implementing client-side fixes that will target the out-of-map glitch, which has become a massive pain, and so on and so forth. So they are taking these concerns seriously, and they are leaning forward into it. Now, as to there are a lot of games, a lot of these multiplayer games are ruined by cheating. It becomes a very serious problem. And talking to people I know who do play them, most of the big names you'd think of, like Escape from Tarkov and like Call of Duty and like Battlefield, and even Apex Legends, I've heard, stuff is fairly rampant. And it does ruin a lot of the fun for casuals. And since Arc Raiders has developed this player base, they having sold this many copies for right out of the gate in this market, this is their first entry into this type of genre. They've done very well, and I can understand them wanting to keep it. So I give them credit for they've kind of built their own identity with this game in terms of compared to its peers, and it seems that they want to protect it. And so I don't see that as anything but a good thing. All right, now that we've discussed a shooter that seems to be moving in the right direction, that seems to have maintained its popularity months after launch, it's still racking in roughly the same player count it was when it started. We're going to talk about a game that's not doing as well, and this comes to us via IGN. This article was posted on Tuesday, the 6th of January. Steam charts don't measure fun. Splitgate dev chimes in after players express fear over PC launch numbers. And it says 1047 Games has some thoughts regarding how Splitgate Arena Reloaded is faring on Steam, and it's got a message for fans. Steam charts don't measure fun. The Halo and Portal-inspired FPS relaunched December 17th on the consoles and PC after the studio chose to use U-turn with an overall rework for Splitgate 2 back in July of 2025. Okay, it was a move made amid layoffs at 1047 that saw both the sequel and its popular predecessor, the first Splitgate, were pulled offline as the studio promised big sweeping changes. Those changes seemingly failed to attract players, with just 2,300 logging in to play the free-to-play game Steam at launch. A little more than 800 playing at the time of this piece's publication. Okay. Now then 1047 came out with this tweet, and it's going to be really hard, but I'll read part of it. They say, Steam charts don't measure fun. They show one number on one platform at a given moment. They don't show the full picture or what it feels like to actually play, and they definitely don't capture the community, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to read the whole thing. You kind of know where that's going. Well, to me, I think this is a lot of bravery or the devs there putting their heads in the sand, and they're either trying to talk a good game or they're ignoring what's about to sneak up, not even sneak up, what's coming up behind them to bite them in the ass, and it should be very obvious to them. Let's go over to the Steam charts and actually look at that. Now, this is for Splitgate Arena Reloaded, and you can see it's about 1,000, 1,200 players, and you can see since it launched, it's never really done a whole lot. And if you compare it with their full release cycle from back when they first released Splitgate 2, you can see they were hitting 25,000 players. It quickly fell off, and the relaunch didn't do a whole lot. You may or may not remember, but 1047 Games were the guys that came out. I want to say it was at Summer Game Fest last year, but it was one of those showcases. They came out to present their game or talk about their game wearing the hats that said "Make FPS Great Again." I don't really care about the political implications of that, because some people were throwing a fit over it. But it's more about, if you're going to make that kind of statement, you better be prepared to back it up. And they didn't. What they did is they produced a very standard-looking team shooter with the addition of the portals. And that was about it. They did that. They were also accused of very aggressively monetizing their game at the time. There were some serious overpriced cosmetic packages. And this company has already laid off people at least once. I can't remember. It might be twice, but I know at least once they've laid off developers. So to say that Steam charts don't measure fun, but you know what they do measure? They measure success. It is very unlikely that a game that released on both PC and console at the same time is going to show 1,000 players on Steam and then be racking up 50,000 players on the console. I know we don't have those numbers, but they tend to be roughly the same from everything I've seen. Yeah, that's not counting console exclusives. That's different. But I'm talking about games that release simultaneously. They tend to be analogous. They tend to be in the same ballpark. I'd go on a limb and say the console player base for Splitgate Arena Reloaded is probably in the 4 digits, same as it is on the PC. If they are posting this as a free to play game and they're only racking in several thousand players, they are not going to survive on battle passes and cosmetics at that level without, on a free to play game. It's just not going to happen. This game will stagger on for a few more months and it will collapse. It doesn't really matter how good the game is. I've talked to a few people and they've said that the gameplay is actually much better. But I think people have already left it behind. I think 1047 games missed their window. And when we talk about things like this, there's always a few people that crawl the woodworks and say, well, they can recover. What about games like No Man's Sky? I said, that's fine. No Man's Sky, yes, they did recover from a horrendous launch. The key point is it took them years to do so, to win back player faith and dedication. Is 1047 Games going to be able to survive for that long with the staff they have before they fold, just go bankrupt essentially? And No Man's Sky and Hello Games, they're the exception. There are a lot of games, the vast majority of games that go into this death spiral don't pull out of it. No Man's Sky is only exceptional because it did. It's one of the few success stories. Or you can think about Cyberpunk, which had a horrendous launch over on console, but they had all of the prestige and fan base built up from the Witcher series, especially Witcher 3, that saw them through that. They had the kind of pull to weather that storm. 1047 doesn't. And for them to say Steam charts don't measure fun, it's very specific language. You're right. They don't measure fun. It could be a great game, but they do measure how profitable your game is going to be to some degree. And I think they are, if they're serious about this, if it's not just they're putting up a good front, I think they're deluding themselves. We're going to find out. Okay, next up, I want to talk about this Video Game Chronicles article from, this is from Wednesday, the 7th of January. Machine Games is reportedly working on Wolfenstein 3D and a Rainbow Six Siege-style multiplayer title. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle Studio, Machine Games, is planning a third Wolfenstein game, it's claimed. According to separate reports from Windows Central and Kotaku, the former which claims the Sweden-based Bethesda studio, is working on another title. Machine Games released its last game, the critically acclaimed Indiana Jones, at the tail end of 2024. Its last Wolfenstein game, the co-op title, Youngblood, came out in 2019. A new entry would make sense for Bethesda. Okay, it was recently confirmed a Wolfenstein live-action series is in development at Amazon following the huge success of its Fallout show. Okay, and they said that they are looking at doing this. Now, this isn't news per se. I mean, I go all the way back to this article in Variety from 2018 that says that Bethesda is making Wolfenstein 3 and not abandoning single player. I say Bethesda because Machine Games is a subsidiary of ZeniMax Studios and Bethesda, which means now it's also a subsidiary of Microsoft. And they confirmed back then that they were still making a Wolfenstein 3. So this game has been in development for a long time. Now, the first thought that crossed my mind when I see that is that if this game has been in continual development, or at least people have been poking around in it for 7 years, almost 8 years now, what kind of development train has it built at this point? How much money has been sunk into this? Has it just been kind of notional? Have they actually done some of the pre-production and started building assets for it? Because that's the stuff I think that gets expensive, when they start actually putting effort into it and it's not just an idea they're kicking around. How expensive is this going to be? And let's be honest, Wolfenstein Youngblood was not that well received. I can kick over here to the Steam page and look, and you can see the overall reviews for the last 6 years, 44% positive. That sucks. There's no way around it. The last 30 days, it's 32% mostly negative. And if you can read down through it, it's the same litany. It's boring. It's derivative. It doesn't feel like the rest of the series. The characters are all completely fucking annoying. The writing is terrible. On and on and on. Nobody received this well. Okay. I know that Wolfenstein, I was at the Old Order, is that the name of the second one? Did pretty well, but the last entry did not do well. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, from what I understand, it did fairly well. But whenever I try to look up sales figures, all I get are player counts. They said it passed 4 or 5 million players overall. Well, that's counting all the people playing it on Xbox Live and on PlayStation Plus. Last I saw, the most comprehensive sales figure I saw was something from Alina Analytics back in April of last year. So about 4 months after Indiana Jones came out, and it had sold about 250,000 copies. At least that was their estimation. That may be okay, depending on how much it cost to develop. But I wouldn't say it was a certified hit or anything. It did okay. So Machine Games is kind of now. I don't know if this will, if Wolfenstein doesn't do well, if it's going to torpedo them and it's going to kill them off. They are part of Microsoft. They are part of the Borg. But then again, Microsoft just this year slashed a whole bunch of their game studios that weren't productive. So who knows? I think this is always going to come down to the gameplay, just like it does with most things. The writing can suffer. The characters can be annoying. If the game plays well, it will probably do okay based on name recognition alone. If the gameplay suffers, or if it's janky, or if it's buggy, it's probably going to kill the franchise. It may kill the studio. I played the first Castle Wolfenstein game back in like 1981 on an old Atari computer. So I know how, in trying to sneak out of the castle, me and my friend would play. I would steer, he would shoot. Give us a break. We were 10 at the time. So I know how, what a long-standing history this franchise has. But we'll see how this goes. It's been in the works for a while. Maybe now with the news percolating up, they're starting to push forward again. So, maybe we'll see some more Wolfenstein. Okay, next up, I want to talk about 3 different games that have either been featured at showcases lately, will be, or might be in the future. And I will start with this article from Game Informer from Thursday, January 8th. And it says, January Xbox Developer Direct will feature Forza Horizon 6, Fable, and Game Freak's Beast of Reincarnation. You know me, I'm not much of a racing guy, but I am an RPG guy, and I'm really interested to see where Fable goes. This is one of Xbox's, I guess, flagship first-party studio, in-house developed studio game series, and I guess they're kind of rebooting it with this one. After it went up to Fable 3 before, so they're starting this over. There has been a lot of talk about this. It's been delayed several times, so I'm interested in getting a look at this. The Xbox Developer Direct will be on Thursday, January 22nd, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to try to watch it. I don't know if I'm going to live stream it, but I'm just going to check it out. So that's what they're talking about, and they come down here to talk about it. Playground Games welcomes players back to the fairy tale land of Albion with the first in-depth look at Fables, one of 2026's most anticipated titles. So I guess they are planning on releasing it this year. So that'll be interesting. Maybe we will get a release date there. Then they're also going to talk about Forza Horizon and Beast of Reincarnation, a game I don't know anything about. But I'm interested in seeing Fable, so we'll see a week from Thursday what's coming up there. Second, I'd like to discuss this article from Tweaktown, which was also published on Thursday. Report, Blizzard's new Starcraft shooter may be shown at BlizzCon 2026. New reporters say Blizzard may reveal a surprise third-person action shooter set in Starcraft universe during September's big BlizzCon 2026 event. Okay, and that repeats the headline, and it says, is reportedly working on a new third-person action shooter set in the StarCraft universe. The info was revealed as part of Jason Schreier's book on Blizzard's history, which said the shooter had been greenlit at Blizzard. And then down here it says, now there's another report from Windows Central that says this new mystery shooter could be revealed at BlizzCon in September. Blizzard has previously canceled 2 Starcraft shooters in the past, Ghost and Ares. The status of this new project remains unclear. However, Blizzard does show signs of trying to revitalize the Starcraft franchise back in April 2025. It was reported that Nexon received rights to make a new Starcraft game for Southeast Asia. See, this is where I think they may have missed the market with this. They've let this series, and I'm just going to speak for the Western market because I know, I believe at least, StarCraft remains very popular in the East. They let this series percolate too long in the Western markets. I mean, this game, the last StarCraft game was a generation ago, and a lot of gamers, it just doesn't have the same generational cachet as, say, something like Resident Evil, which has been consistently popular for 30 years, or Call of Duty and those types of games that have had nobody's seen or heard of StarCraft from years, so they might have missed their boat. And I'm not saying Blizzard can't make a great game, and it can't be successful. Lord knows there's enough lore there from back in the 90s and early 2000s to make it in this universe, but it's a question of whether they can or not. And Blizzard is certainly not the same company that they were back then, as things like Diablo Immortal have shown us. Their focus has shifted entirely, and I question, even if they do this, how good it's going to be. But hey, we'll give it a shot and see what happens. And third, I want to talk about this article from Games Radar from Friday the 9th of January. With a map twice the size of Skyrim and larger than Red Dead Redemption 2, promising open-world game Crimson Desert is real big, but still incredibly interactive. And this was brought up because this game was new footage revealed during the New Games Plus showcase, which is a relatively, I think it was a premiere. I think this was the first one the other day. And it said, included some of the look at the mechanics in the game for traversing the open world, allowing players to mount and ride dragons, bears, and also dinosaurs in mech suits. A game also takes a page out of Zelda's Tears of the Kingdom book by including explorable sky islands. And according to the PR director, the world is at least twice as big as the open world playable area of Skyrim, larger than the map of RDR2, and it's going to be very interactive. Now, this game, from what I've seen about it, it looks interesting. It's from Pearl Abyss, the publishers behind the online game Black Desert Online. So they have some experience, maybe have the chops to do an open world game properly. What I've seen so far, the game looks interesting. It looks good. So we'll have to wait and see. But this was my third entry in the showcases, showing us something, to talk about something new. So anyway, keep your eye out. If you like RPGs, keep your eye out for Crimson Desert, because it's supposed to release in March. I want to say the 16th. So it's about 2 months away. I let off last week's news video with news about a possible Witcher DLC. And now some more information has come out. This article from Eurogamer from Thursday the 8th of January. 2026 rumored Witcher 3 DLC will take us further afield than ever before per new rumors. They say it's been a busy year for a game that's over 10 years old, blah, 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 blah. Now more information about this decade-late DLC seems to have surfaced. Per IGN Poland, it seemed that CD Projekt's developers have mentioned a past interest in exploring the region of Zerkania, I should say, which Zerkania is, in the Witcher universe, is a kind of a desert region that is east of Nilfgaard and the Northern Realms. And this IGN article, which I can flip over here too, it does have an English translation, fortunately. And I'll link this article because I think it's interesting and some of the possibilities. They talk about the fact that one of the antagonists from Witcher 1 was from Zerkania. Zerkania is supposed to be in the lore where there's a lot of alchemy ties in. I think that's where the bombs originated for the Witchers. The Manticore School, which showed up in the Blood and Wine DLC, is said to be in Zerkania. So I think there's a lot of possibilities here. Anyway, I'll link this article. This article here actually shows it. I probably should have led with this. Shows it better than the Eurogamer article. So if you're interested in reading about the Witcher 3's DLC and what may be happening, until it comes out, we got nothing better to do than speculate. But anyway, I'll link this down below. I'll link the English translation and check it out if you want to continue to speculate on, are we going to get another DLC for this awesome game? I only bring this article up because it allows me to hammer home a point I've been making repeatedly since I've been doing the news videos, and this comes to us from Engadget from Wednesday the 7th. Ubisoft is shutting down a studio 16 days after it unionized, and it said it's closing a Canadian studio In a dizzying claim, the company told GamesIndustry.biz that the closure of Ubisoft Halifax was part of company-wide actions to streamline operations and unrelated to the unionization. And it said 71 positions will be affected, and etc. I mean, if you want to believe them or not believe them, or if you believe unions are good or bad, whatever, that's all irrelevant to the point I'm making with including this news article. And my point is that these are not the actions of a healthy studio. These are not the actions of a studio that's doing well. Ubisoft is continuing to struggle. They have laid off. This is another layoff. They have been laid off so many people in the last year. I hesitate to say this, but for the franchises that they kind of handed over to Tencent, or partially with this, was it Valiant Studios, that Assassin's Creed and Rainbow Six and Far Cry. If we ever want to see good games out of these franchises again, Tencent can't fully control them soon enough. I mean, there's no other way to put it, because anything with Ubisoft touching it at this point is just going to be garbage. They don't have any idea what they're doing, and they're just continuing to hemorrhage money. It is what it is. Some things just seem to be about as inexorable as the sun rising and setting. And this here's another one. This article from PC Games In from Monday, the 6th of January. Steam just hit more concurrent players than there are people in Canada, as Counter-Strike 2 and PUBG push it to a new peak. And it says that, yes, it hit 41.8 million concurrent users, which is a record. And it said also nearly 13.4 million players were actively gaming, which I've read elsewhere was also a record. And as it drops down here, it says many analysts believed gaming numbers would peak during the COVID-19 pandemic. Steam's user base has nearly doubled since the first lockdown in April of 2020. A lot of that has to do with them getting into China, but even so, I'm not a blind Steam acolyte. I didn't like the way they handled the payment processor thing that last year that led to a lot of games being delisted. Adult games were no longer be able to found on the platform. I don't think they pushed back as hard as they could have. It was very disappointing. At the same time, you see numbers like this, and only one particular clip seems to fit.
I am inevitable.
You know those memes that say, "In Gaben we trust, Steam does nothing and wins"? They come from somewhere, and here we are. Okay, I only bring this up because it's a serious what the hell moment. This is from Games Radar from Friday the 9th of January. A woman fakes entire esports career without ever once playing a video game. Why not? People fake whole relationships. They fake online personas. Why should this be any different? A female esports pro is making waves, but not for a good reason. It turned out she faked playing games entirely. This individual here, esports competitor named Warasin Nafat, aka Tokyo Girl, is a member of Thailand's national team for the 2025 Southeast Asian Games. She was participating in the event's Arena of Valor competition on December 15th when official noticed the disparity between what was happening on her gameplay when compared to the movement of her hands. It discovered that rather than actually playing the game, she was using Discord to screen share someone who was playing remotely. She was expelled from the tournament, and she took her whole team down with her. They were all disqualified. This whole world is a mess. All right, folks, I'm going to call this one quits. I've covered a lot of ground today, a lot of stuff going on in the gaming world, and I'm here for it all. Hopefully you found something that was entertaining or interesting to you. As always, I thank you for coming. I would ask you to do the YouTube stuff. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. And if you have a comment, please leave that down below. If you disagree with something I said or you feel like I missed a major story this week, let me know. I do read all comments. I try to respond to as many as I can. And I would love to have your subscription. It just takes one click, supports me, helps out a whole lot, helps me expand my reach, because I really do just enjoy talking about games. So I will be back next week with more gaming news. And I've got some other stuff in the works, still working through some of my gameplays. And I've got some new features coming up for the channel. Hopefully those will be good and people will enjoy them. And in the meantime, I do thank you for coming and sticking through this with me. I appreciate that. You all go out there, you live your best lives, and you all stay gaming.